Representative Lawrence. At this time, the chair recognizes Representative Trone of Maryland, and it is the chair's intention to adjourn for the one vote, to recess for the one vote. We've been called to make one vote on the House floor. We'll recess after Mr. Trone's 5 minutes and then return in approximately 20 minutes. Mr. Trone, you are recognized.
Great. Thank you, Attorney General Garland, for joining us today, and Chair Cartwright, Ranking Member Aderholt, holding this hearing. One of my top priorities in Congress: ensure returning citizens have a job. Have a job is the key when they're released from prison. The data is clear. Best way we cut recidivism is a job. So to that end, Mr. Attorney General, I believe the Bureau of Prisons is too understaffed and under-resourced to fully implement the First Step Act. We spent a lot of time on this, and this is clearly the case. We hear stories after stories of case managers and support staff doing double duty as correctional officers, tremendous burnout, staff, inmates without vital services. So we believe BOP needs strong leadership from the top. The job is currently open. You have the opportunity to find a new director and turn this ship around. So if you could elaborate on the status right now of the leadership, future leadership at BOP, and how we can effectively then get that individual to move forward with the First Step Act.
Yes, so I don't want to go too far in detailing our personnel work, but the program for applying for the head of the Bureau of Prisons has closed. So we have all the applicants. They are under intense review right now. I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to announce the new director in the relatively near future. On the staffing question, I have to say I completely agree with you. And that's why our FY23 budget request seeks 1,300 new staff, 700 new corrections officers, and 600 for the First Step Act program that you were talking about. I'm also in complete agreement with you that an important part of fighting recidivism and easing re-entry is getting people a job. Both our department and the Department of Labor are asking for money, particularly $100 million for a joint Department of Justice, Department of Labor workforce initiative. To have the Department of Labor help us in getting people jobs and getting them lined up before they leave custody. So I think all of the things you said, I agree with.
Excellent. In my company and private business, we've hired over 500 returning citizens, and we get a double-digit better number on retention rate. So these folks will take a second chance and succeed. And the job is what we have to stress with the new director of the BOP. Only 50% of the individual in federal custody are completing or that are enrolled in programming that DOJ has determined reduce the likelihood of recidivism. What steps can we take to get BOP's funding again on programs that DOJ has said will reduce recidivism, but only less than 50% are participating in those programs that you've outlined?
So I'm not sure whether that number is still accurate. We issued a report under the First Step Act within the last month, which details the significant increases in the number of these evidence-based recidivism programs, which are now available because of the work we've been doing over the past year to make those programs available. I don't recall what the current participation rate is, but it is reflected in that report that was available. We are working very hard on improving those numbers, and the First Step Act money that we're asking for will assist us in that, as will the increase in First Step Act staff for the Bureau of Prisons.
Another point would be great if we could have the BOP is directed by the First Step Act to help inmates obtain a valid government ID prior to release. It's one of the primary barriers of returning citizens from accessing employment, housing, public benefits. We frequently hear from employers that even BOP officials, that this program is not running at the capacity which it should be running. We'd appreciate if you could take your staff and take a look and figure out how we get to 100% of our folks that are returning citizens have that government ID when they head out into the workplace.
Well, I would be happy to do that. We have institutes program of working with the Immigration Customs Enforcement, the Government Publishing Office, Transportation Security Administration, DHS, to develop a federal ID for inmates who are unable to obtain state-issued ID. And we've drafted an interagency agreement between the Bureau of Prisons and the Marshals that includes language allowing prisoners to maintain personal identification upon transport, and therefore their state IDs upon their transfer to facilities, so we don't have to start all over again after they've re-entered. But I think your point that we need to increase the percentage who are able to get that identification is fundamental to be able to operate in our society nowadays.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General, very much. And please keep an eye on automatic expungement laws. Any dollars we can get to expunge automatically, the states are not keeping up with this. That would help folks get employment. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trone. And ladies and gentlemen, we will recess for 20 minutes.